You're listening to a Galactic Network podcast.
The Podcast of Terror is a show with adult themes, run by adults, for adults. Please do not have your children listen to this show. It might be beneficial to them in the long run, but please wait until they are older. This is one of those things. It's like when you laugh when you're playing bingo and 069 comes up and you have a chuckle and your kitty says, Mommy, why are you laughing at 069? And the mommy says, when you're older. It's one of those kinds of things. Mommy, can I listen to Podcast of Terror? Sure. When you're older. This is a show with adult themes and some childish behavior. A lot of dick jokes. So please. If you want to avoid the swearing, if you want to avoid spoilers for your favorite horror movies, and if you want to avoid really, really lame, petty dick jokes, do not listen to this show. It is not for you.
Corey, how often do you wear a shirt?
Not as often as you would think.
Yeah, it's always nice to cover up your nipples, and maybe your neighbors are complaining because they're hairy. I know you wear shirts when we do these shows. That's about it, from what I understand.
It's more that I just give off a glare that blinds drivers by.
It is hot in California, so I assume that you sweat. There's a slight sheen to you, and the California sun just...
I don't even sheen. I Estevez.
That is... If you do not want to Estevez in public... We have two places in which you can go. We got two coupon codes to make your life a little cheaper. You can go visit frequent guest and friend of the show, Matt Vincent, his website, thehate.com. That's the HVIII.com. Use the coupon code HBG15 for 15% off your order. Maybe you hate him. I don't know. He's kind of a likable guy. But if you hate him and you want to go spend your money somewhere else, we got this other place. Go to statusfearmerch.com. Another sponsor of the show, friend of the show. He does all our artwork. He's a really nice guy. He does all the art for my band, except for the stuff that Corey's wife draws. Head over to statusfearmerch.com. Use the coupon code TERROR. Get you a little nice discount there. Burn and fire, burn the fire. Burn and fire, burn the fire. Welcome to episode 117 of the Podcast Era, a production of the Galactic Network. I'm your host, Matt Stein. With me, as always, is Corey Scott. He's being really nice to me. I didn't come up with a mean name for him this time.
You'll work on it.
Yeah,
I believe in you.
Out. Fucking prick. Our guest this week, I totally forgot to clarify how to say his last name, so I'm just going to hope that I don't fuck it up. But he is the writer and director of the movie that we're going to be talking about this week, The Incantation, Jude Walko.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Walko, yeah.
Well, okay. I'm like, well, I didn't know if you'd say the L. Don't say the L.
Yeah.
You've been so difficult to work with, so I didn't want to fuck up your name.
Damn it, those Hollywood types.
Yeah, so Jude is coming to us from Bangkok again. 2 weeks ago we had Russell, so it's 9 a.m. Monday morning. At least you are not hungover. Russell was super hungover and wouldn't drink with me. So you're drinking.
My only disclaimer is if you hear children's voices, that's just the Nike sweatshop in my basement. So just ignore that. Otherwise,
I was going to make the joke. Man. You did it for me.
Yeah,
it wasn't so much the sweatshop, but that works too.
Right.
So you have an extensive list. I don't really know where to begin.
I'm going to begin at one of my favorite things, which is you worked as coordinating producer on Epic Meal Empire.
Yes.
And my wife and I loved that show.
Oh, nice.
And she had never seen any of their YouTube stuff before that, so she came into it completely unknowing of what it was, and she's like, "What the hell are we watching?" And then by the end of maybe the second episode, she was just totally into it.
Yeah, that was great. That was a great show.
Yeah, those guys were a lot of fun, and that show was kind of insane. But then so many people who came and passed through that show as well, because I've seen pictures on your IMDb page of you with like Jason Mewes and Kevin Smith.
Kevin Smith, yeah, they were on it, and Melissa Rivers was on it, and tons of people like that. Yeah, that was a great experience. I mean, the funny thing is, I'd come mostly from the feature film world at that point. Most of my career has been feature film, but I have a good friend who works with this company called Studio 71 in LA, and they represent, what they call influencers, or which are like the famous YouTube and Instagram, Facebook type celebrities. And Harley Morenstein, as you know, heads up Epic Meal Empire with Josh Elkin and David Huff. And when I first met him, I never dealt with one in this television reality, sort of scripted reality television. And secondly, with YouTubers, I was used to dealing with all kinds of celebrities, but it was a different animal. And they were really standoffish in the beginning. And like, they would just be buried in their phones. And that was like when I think Instagram was just coming out. So they were like all over that. Snapchat and stuff was just happening. And it was hard because I was producing the show and I was first assistant directing the show. But by like the first week of prep, they just came and went as they please. Harley is notoriously late. He's an hour late, so I used to I used to give him a separate call sheet with an hour earlier call time than anybody else. So he would think that he was he was actually an hour late, but he was actually on time. But long story short, by the end of it, man, those guys are still some of my great friends. They're super awesome. They live in Canada, as you know, so I don't get to see them that often, but we're still good friends, and they're ridiculous. Harley's ridiculous, and he's changed a lot. I mean, he's now in this whole routine where he's like super healthy and he's working out all the time. Back then, he was not in the best shape, and I literally saw him drink about 3/4 of a fifth of Jack Daniels while we were shooting an episode. And but he's a big guy, so he's probably 6'4", maybe 300 pounds. I don't know. I'm just guessing, but he's a big old dude. But still, he he can party, man. But it was a fun show. It was a really great show, really fun.
Yeah, it seemed like a lot of fun, and just from outside of it, they looked like great guys. But it was nice to see that transition be able to work, going from YouTube to doing an actual show, and being entertaining in a way that is more compliant with a TV audience versus an online audience.
That was really difficult for them because they get to curse and drink alcohol and stuff. And so Harley is a genius. Let me just put that out there. The man is a genius, which is why he is where he is. And as you know, he's good friends with Kevin Smith, and he's an always and all that. But that's besides the point. But they had this rule where you can't drink alcohol on television. So what Harley would do is he would pour him a big old, cup of whatever he was drinking, and then he would go, "Hang on, guys," and the camera would be there, and he'd take it off screen, and he'd take a big gulp, and he'd come back, and his mouth would be wet, and it'd be all gone, and be like, "Yeah," So he would do things like that to get around the censorship, and it actually made the show a lot funnier. But you knew exactly what he's doing, so it's kind of like a big fuck you to the network. But they in the end, it all worked out great.
So, let's talk about this new movie that you have. Or, I don't know. I've seen it. I'm lucky enough to have seen it. But I was trying to do some internet research on it, and it's kind of hard to come by. So, I'd prefer you to talk about it, because Corey and I, normally when we talk about a movie, we ruin the shit out of it. But the past couple weeks, we've been doing movies that aren't out, or the guest doesn't really want us to ruin them. So, I'll let you ruin it as much as you'd like to, and then we'll take your lead.
Yeah, okay. Okay, cool. All right, well, should I give you... I mean, there's so much sort of backstory to this movie. Should I give you a little bit of that first to get started?
Absolutely.
Yes, please.
Okay, cool. Okay, so a couple things you should know about me. I was born in 1972. I'll be 46 this year. So that my influences are heavily... of that time. I'm basically the same age as the kids in Stranger Things. They were 10. I would be 10 in 1982, let's say, as an example. So that's the age I grew up in. Secondly, my brother is 10 years older than me. So he had a heavy influence in music and films and things that I was interested in, was because he had already went through all that, and I was kind of getting his secondhand information. So that's the first two things about the film. A big Hammer film fan. If you know Hammer films, they starred Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing.
Yeah.
Always a super hot, topless woman, and the scenario in those, are always pretty much the same. The location is basically the star of the show, because Hammer had a castle called the Hammer Castle, and what they would do is they would shoot that castle and they would change it for every movie, and they did hundreds of movies. And then what they would do is they would go in town and they would shoot whatever the B story leading up to the main plot was. So essentially the location was the centerpiece of the movie, and then it was always the same. You had some older guy who was usually Christopher Lee, who was either the lord of the castle, or he was this crazy scientist, or he was the whatever. he was the main patriarch of that area. And then you had the damsel in distress, who may or may not be in on whatever was going on there. Sometimes she was a willing participant, sometimes she was a victim. And then you had the young, protagonist guy, the young handsome protagonist that got thrown into that situation either he was an investigator or his car broke down or whatever reason, he was a fish out of water there, right? And he got delved into this supernatural, and then the payoff was there was always either a creature or some cursed object or some cultism going on. So that's the scenario in almost all of these movies. So that's kind of what I grew up with. So that's the basis for my very early horror movies. And then on top of that, I'm a huge fan of all the original Amityville, the original Exorcist, one of my favorite movies, which we can talk about later, is The Car, which is this schlocky sort of dual Wheels of Terror type movie. But we'll get to that later. But so anyways, so that's the basis of my knowledge of horror. So then take that into modern day, and my film sort of embraces all these things and makes them contemporary. And that's the background of the story to get us started talking about it. I'm going to open a beer.
Please do. What may I ask what kind of beer you're drinking?
Absolutely. So it might quite literally be Panther Piss because it's beer Lao.
I've had it.
It's from a third world. Yeah, you go.
There's a Thai restaurant in town, and it's run by a Laotian family, and they have all that.
There you go.
It's fucking good.
I love it. I love beer. I love beer Lao, and I love Tiger beer. I love Leo beer. They're all named after big cats for some reason, but they're like the Laotian and the Thailand beers they're great.
That's fucking awesome. I'm gonna take a stab in the dark, Corey. You're drinking Lipton iced tea.
I am drinking Lipton iced tea, sir.
God, you gotta get sponsorship for that shit, man.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I have a brewery from Madison Ale Asylum came out with a beer called Satisfaction Jackson, which is the name of a pornography, and also a name of a local band from the city I grew up in, Sheboygan. Apparently Sheboygan, Wisconsin. So apparently one of the guys from the band is now working at Ale Asylum, and that's why they have this beer. We had friends over last night, and there was one left. And then I got this orange can that I'm kind of scared of.
What? It's a mystery can?
Well, it's called Tangerine Haze.
Okay.
So we'll see how that one ends up.
It sounds like something Jimi Hendrix would drink.
Yeah. There's a brewery called Abita from New Orleans that has a beer called Purple Haze.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of Abita. I've shot a couple times in New Orleans. They used to have a great incentive down there. Tax incentive.
Really?
It used to be the best in the nation before Georgia came around.
I wouldn't know any of these things.
Producer life, hashtag producer life.
Life's cooler than mine. So how did you? So you're from Georgia. How did you end up in Thailand? Other than that, it's cheap as fuck. Yeah,
exactly. I am from Georgia. I graduated University of Georgia. I spent when I was. This is the very long way of telling you how I got to Thailand. When I was a junior in college at UGA, I did an exchange program to Los Angeles because I wanted to be an actor at that time. I was an actor at that time. I still am an actor, as you know, but I ended up going to California, which is closer to Thailand than Georgia is. Long story short, me and my buddies go over there for like a week vacation to Thailand, and I will admit to this wholeheartedly. These guys were all like tatted up, second-time felons because I used to work in the construction business to pay my bills, right? So they don't do a background check. I was a dispatcher. They were truck drivers and construction guys. So I took all these felons to Thailand. I was the only straight-laced guy.
All right.
We spent a week in Thailand, and I broke down in front of all of them the night we had to go back, and I started crying in front of all these jacked, ex-cons, and they're like, "You pussy, what's wrong with you?" And I was like, "Man, I love this place. I felt some connection. I really did. I felt some spiritual connection to this place." And I was like, "I don't want to leave, man." And then, long story short, I just kept coming back. I would save money. I was working as a production assistant and a production coordinator, not making a lot of money. And every time I had enough money to save for a plane ticket, which back then was like only $600-700 and enough to spend, which I didn't need that much, I would fly back again. And I just kept coming back and met my wife, eventually had 2 kids, bought a farm, bought a house, started a production company, and the rest is history. But yeah, so that's how I ended up here. I loved it.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about Matt, but I did not know a lot about Thailand up until a couple weeks ago when we started basically doing these interviews and stuff and talking to people who are either living there or have been there and seeing Who's Watching Oliver and getting to see how beautiful it is.
Yeah.
It's like never once would have crossed my mind about going to Thailand. Now it's one of those things of maybe this has made my bucket list. And I'm not a traveler. I'm not a person who runs around a lot, but it's very enticing.
It's surprising that a lot of people say that. And when the first time I came to Thailand, these guys, they did filters for the big beer companies, like Carlsberg and stuff. And they were in Thailand. They traveled the world, and they would basically get 6 months on and 6 months off. And it was my first time in Thailand. And I said, well, you guys can go anywhere in the world. You make a ton of money. Why do you always come back to Thailand? And they said to me, out of all the places we traveled in all the world, Europe, Asia, wherever, we love Thailand the best, and we keep coming back. And I said, okay. And then I figured out why eventually. But it's just the culture's great. The people are great. The food is healthy. The weather's perfect. There's beaches, mountains, caves, water sports. There's culture, like whatever, you name it. It's great.
Do you ever get sick of perfect weather, though? Like, I have, outside of, this is going to be a surprise to some people. Besides Corey, I have a few other friends, 2 of which are from California, and anytime it snows, like, they demand that I send them a picture because it's just so fucking cool to them. And I'm like, try driving in this garbage.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
No, I agree. The seasonal change is definitely, you miss that. I mean, I miss, luckily for me, in the last like 5 years, I've been working in the States during the October to December holidays. So I got my share of that whole Halloween through Thanksgiving to Christmas thing, which is great because I really miss that more than anything living in Thailand. That it's funny the things you miss. You miss that. You miss like a good steak, a good greasy cheeseburger, and a milkshake. Those are the things you miss. You miss American football. It's stuff that you don't really pay attention to that much in the States, but when you're here, you're like, man, that's what I want. But luckily for me, I'm very blessed. I kind of I get to dive into both sides of the Pacific, so I got lucky that way.
See, it's not terrible. Like, I don't mind winter, and then after Christmas, I'm like, this shit could stop. And like lately, it's been like real moderate and mild, and then I think the past week, last Thursday, I was supposed to go down to the company I work for has an office in Madison, Wisconsin. And I was supposed to go Thursday and come back Friday, and then they got 9 inches of snow, and like the office opened late and shit. So I didn't go, thankfully. Otherwise, I probably would have got stuck there till Saturday. But shit like that drives me nuts. Like I'm supposed to go to Iowa in 2 weeks for a concert, and I'm like, well, if there's a big ass snowstorm, then I don't go. It's like you never fucking
Right?
know what you're gonna do because it might snow.
God, it's crazy. I shot a few films in Grand Rapids, Michigan during the winter. So a couple of those winters I got dumped on by the quote unquote lake effect, as they call it.
Dude, lake effect.
Yeah, I lived in
joke.
I lived in Grand Rapids, and my parents moved to about an hour away from there, so I just flew into Grand Rapids Airport last year around this time. But yeah, I lived in Wyoming, Michigan, technically, but which is another thing I was going to bring up. You are a member of the Moose Lodge?
Yeah, boy.
What the fuck?
So
what just happened?
Every time I was a kid, we go up to visit my grandparents in Grand Rapids, and we go to the Moose Lodge all the time because they were both Moose members. My mom's a Moose member.
Yeah.
I'm fucking seriously.
Can I give you guys
what just happened?
I need to give you guys some exclusive information right now that's going to blow your California people away about the Moose Lodge. So I got a fucking story about everything, so bear with me. So Good. Moose Lodge, one year, I used to coordinate, which basically means you get everything ready for film, right? It's like a mid-level before you become a producer. So I used to rent the Moose Lodge all the time because they have great space and they're a charity, so they would be like, hey, rent us for production space. Anyways, one year it's 420. It's April 20th, and me and my friends are walking down the street, and we're like, "Fuck, man, we need to get fucked up. It's 420." So the Moose Lodge, we hear music coming from the Moose Lodge of all places. Now everyone knows the Moose Lodge. It's like the Shriners. The average, the median age is probably 65, if not closer to 85, right? So we're like, I don't know how old I was at the time. Maybe I was 35. I don't know. I can't remember. But they're younger than me. I walk in there. Burbank Moose Lodge is a musicians, like real musicians, like the guy from Blondie, ZZ Top, Rod Stewart's guys, like all these traveling musicians that have been doing it for 30 years, go jam on there on Mondays and Tuesdays, and Moose members are allowed to bring a guest. So, long story short, about 15 of my friends joined the Moose Lodge for that reason, and their age median went down by 20 years easily. But it's still that way. There's a guy named Steve Moose that plays there, and you never know which session musician, not even session musician, these are real, they're the touring guys. They're part of the band, you know, like the drummer or the saxophonist or the bassist or whatever will just show up unannounced, and they all jam together, and it's phenomenal. It's crazy.
Yeah. I have to do something for Matt because he's 20 years younger than us. Matt, in the 80s,
not that much younger.
Everybody, all rock bands had saxophonists. It was just one of those realities of music back then.
Yes. Yeah.
Not everybody.
Not everybody. And the great thing is you can find a Moose Lodge in smaller communities. It's like the center of life, social life.
There's fucking one in Green Bay. There's one in Kaukauna, which is a suburb of Appleton. They're all over the goddamn place.
They're all over the goddamn place.
You gotta goddamn join because it's like $2 beers, and they have potlucks and whatever. You can pick up on 55-year-old women if you like.
But then I have to leave my house. I gotta put pants on. That is a problem.
They come and pick my grandfather up now and take him to the Moose Lodge, and then just let him drink. And Grandpa's brain is going, so they just know he's just going to sit there and hover around beer or hover around boobs, and then they just send him home when they need to send him home. They call my uncle and like, hey, we think your dad's ready to go home. All right, send him.
See?
You know,
they figured out a cheaper way of elderly health care services right there. Boom, there's your answer.
Yeah.
Done.
That's funny. So before we get off topic again, let's talk about the Incantation a bit.
Okay, let's do it.
So my first question is, how did you land Dean Cain?
Fucking sweet. Okay.
Met him at the Moose.
That would have been a great tie-in, wouldn't it? I could probably get Dean to meet me at the Moose nowadays. That'd be great. Well, I did a movie with Dean in Austin, Texas. I can't remember because I did two back-to-back. It was either called Beatdown or Circle of Pain. And Dean played a guy in a wheelchair, a paraplegic. So I was co-producing that, I believe. They after you do over 100 films, they all kind of titles bleed together. But I was in that capacity. And that was a dick thing to say, but it sounded good coming out. Yeah. So Dean says, I really got to get to Europe for this next job. It's super important. And his agent calls me and his manager. And the executive producer of the film was based out of Canada. She wasn't there. So I was basically, for all intents and purposes, running the ship. So Dean comes to me and he says, hey, man, is there any way you can shoot me out? Because I got this big job coming up and it mean a lot to me and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, fuck. So essentially, I did. I asked the crew. I gave the crew the courtesy. I was like, "Hey, man, he needs to get out. Would you mind working overtime for a couple of days? Of course, I'll pay you and blah blah blah. But it's going to be a rough couple of 3 days." And they all agreed. So we did it. And we shot him out, and Dean was super grateful. So, cut to 10 years later, I had lost all contact with Dean. They come and go. He's a celebrity. I'm not. And I'm writing this story, and the more and more I think about it, I'm like, fuck, man, Dean's perfect for this role. He's the person I envision in my mind for this role, right? So, Johns, who's an associate producer on on the Incantation, who has worked with me on several films, had worked with Dean recently, and I was like, hey, man, do you mind just giving me his contact again? He probably doesn't remember me, blah, blah, blah. So I reached out to him after lots of negotiation, only because he's such a busy guy. Like this week he flew from LA to Europe, and then he's going back to LA, and then he's going back to Ireland as an example. And he just didn't know if he had the time because of travel and prior commitments, but he did it. And I'm super grateful because I can honestly say without him, my film would probably be one of the independents that would sit on the shelf for a long time and people wouldn't hear of, or a very small circle would hear of. But thanks to him in it, it's really helped promote it a lot more exponentially, and he knows that, and I'm super grateful, and that's how I got him. And he's just a nice guy. He's one of the nicest fucking guys. I tell you, him and Matthew McConaughey, of the people, all the celebrities I work with, are the top 2 nicest people in Hollywood, in my experience. They just are.
That's awesome here. And well, he was fucking Superman, so he better be nice, because that's something to live up to.
Yeah.
By the way, the movie with Circle of Pain also had Kimbo Slice in it.
Yeah. It was,
oh yeah.
It was presented by Tap Out.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm gonna tell you about these now. So
please.
I used to do these films for Lionsgate, Grindstone and Lionsgate. Grindstone is a company related to Lionsgate. So essentially, we called them fuck fight movies because they had a what we do is that we every 17 minutes, I believe it was. I swear to God, this was their thing. Every 17 minutes, you either had to show some sort of violence, even if it was a scuffle or whatever, or some sexual thing. Mm-hmm. So it was fuck fight. So you had to have topless women and wet t-shirt context. What they would do is they would take a B or C star, like we used Rudy Youngblood, for example, in one after, like 10 years after he did Apocalypto, or 8 years or whatever. So he was known, but you didn't really know him. And then we used one up-and-coming guy. We used Eric Balfour, for example. At the time, no one had heard of him, really. He was sort of in the middle. And then at least one known fighter, which we used Heath Herring and Kimbo Slice. And then you sprinkle it with a couple of up-and-coming UFC guys, and that was the scenario. Top Out sponsored it, and it was basically just, shittiest scripts ever. Like, didn't matter. And the studio didn't care. Sometimes they admittedly wouldn't even read the script. They just said, as long as there's tits and ass and there's blood and there's at least 2 Rocky style fight scenes, we're good. And that we fucking shot a ton of them. And some we did back to back to back. So we'd shoot 3 in a row. We'd move the crew over. We'd just change the actors out, shoot in the same city, use some of the same locations, use some of the same props. It was ridiculous. So I did that. For a few years.
So it appears Beatdown is pretty much the same thing. So I now understand why you didn't know one from the other. Makes more sense now.
Oh, God. Yeah, we shot them together. Back to back. We had a week off, I think. Well, the crew had a week off. I didn't have any time off. But yeah, that's how we did them, man.
When I was a kid, I remember every Jean-Claude Van Damme, Steven Seagal movie that we all watched. No Retreat, No Surrender, any of the fucking kickboxer films. That's the shit that we ate up as teenagers.
Oh, yeah.
I
love those.
You didn't need a story. You just needed to see exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, that was it. So I don't know who came up with the term fuck fight, but we've used it ever since. It's pretty much probably part of the industry lexicon by now. fuck fight. Or maybe it was fight, fuck. Or fight, fuck, fight.
Which was cheaper to film? That's the question.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely the fight's cheaper to film. Because, the ladies they want extra for that stuff.
Yeah, so, and that's the thing, too, is that every fighting competition movie has a fighting montage of, like, all these different fight scenes all bled in together. You never see a fucking montage. And that...
Yes.
Well, I guess you do it in porn. But porn is just completely one fucking montage.
But we need mainstream fucking montage. I got to add that in my next film. I'm going to credit you for that.
That's awesome. Can your next movie just be a montage?
Yeah. I would love that.
I think it's much better in thought than practice, so maybe don't do that.
Man, this Blau beer must be stronger than I thought, because that sounded like a good idea right now.
Oh, it's okay. I'm not saying it doesn't sound like a good idea. I just want you to be like, let's sleep on this. I don't want you to wake up tomorrow and be like,
Right.
we're making this fucking montage, and then when it flops, you come looking for us. These goddamn internet assholes told me to make a 90-minute montage.
Well, when you have a flop in a fucking montage, that's when the music just stops like a record.
Yeah. Right, totally.
You need a better fluffer on set than if you go soft during the
That's
fuck
right.
montage.
Yes. On-set fluffer.
Oh,
Good
God.
title.
All right. So
All right.
let's reel it back in, maybe.
Matt's just embarrassed because he's been an offset fluffer for so long, and he just keeps waiting for that step up.
Yeah, I know.
Just waiting for the call
Well,
to
then
the big league.
you're a second fluffer, first fluffer, and then fluffer department head after that.
I actually just fluff
Which
the
is appropriate
fluffer.
title.
I fluff the fluffer's fluffer.
Yeah.
He refers to himself as a fluffer, but he's really a waiter. We know.
Yeah, I'm just working my way
Right.
through medical school.
Yeah.
And by that he means all the students at a medical school. He's just
Working his way through them.
I just have a school roster and just blowing them one at a time. Just
Yeah.
I'm almost into the S's,
John-
guys.
Johnny Kapitsky, you're up.
Yeah, whip it out. I don't know you, mister. That dick's not going to suck itself, Johnny.
nice thing about the medical school is that it's also filled with cadavers, so you can always like in the dry season.
I have standards. I don't blow the dead.
Blow the Dead sounds like another great movie idea.
That sounds like a terrific movie.
Or a black metal band.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, okay.
They're always
Or a beer, apparently, because the three all cross over now.
Yeah, right.
You just sound very jealous, Corey. Sorry that they don't make black metal Lipton iced tea.
It's black tea.
It's black.
They should.
How black though? Is it like
Right.
black as your soul? Black as a rotting corpse?
I figure that there is some granulated rotted corpse in there.
All right.
Nice. That's what gives it the flavor.
Yeah, if you use more than 5 tea bags, it tastes like grandma.
Oh.
Nice.
So
Moment of silence.
the incantation. Before we start talking about dead grandma again,
Yeah.
She's not cremated, she's brewed.
Yes. She's steeped.
Steeped. Yes.
Jesus, I don't even know if I want to stop this anymore.
I know. Right.
So, we'll get back into grandma, but I want to make sure that we talk about your movie
Oh,
first. So,
back into grandma, all right.
have you seen Dumb and Dumber 2?
Yes. I don't know if I saw the second one. I saw the first one for sure.
Fisting the old lady, and he's like,
No,
it's like a
I definitely
turkey.
did.
She's like, what the fuck is he trying to find? And he's essentially fisting this old lady, and she just
Nice.
at one point goes, "It's just past the giblets,"
Oh, man.
and then he pulls his arm out, and it's just dust. Like, it's just a pile of dust.
That's great.
So when you talk about grandma,
It looks like he's been putting up drywall all day.
Perfect.
oh, that's fucking great. Okay,
Yeah.
your movie film.
Yes.
What I guess what is your synopsis of it?
Okay, so back to that idea of the Hammer film. I took some of those elements and I made a story out of it. But the first thing you should know is sort of how this happened. The happenstance of this is that I shot a movie called Siren in Savannah, Georgia, which is David Bruckner is part of it, and Greg Bishop directed it, and we had a great time. It was a hard shoot. We didn't have a lot of money for what we needed to do, so it was a difficult shoot, but it was fun. And I'm from Georgia, blah blah blah. So while I'm down there, I meet these people called the Sullivans, and their son wants to intern in the art department. So I talk to the parents and I say, hey, this is a slippery slope because of there was a whole Black Swan case where they sued 20th Century Fox because they were doing work of an employee rather than an intern. So it's a thing that we don't like to do often, but if people really want to do it, we love it. But there's a fine line between internship and slave labor, so you got to be careful about it. So anyways, we did it, and the mom, Julie, came in. The son's name was Connor. He's in college now. He was just in high school, and the mother came in and interviewed, and she said, "Do you need anything else for your film?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm looking for a location." And she said, "Oh, well, I have a couple of houses down here." And I said, "Cool." So we shot in her house, and we went to shoot in one of her houses, and there were pictures of a castle everywhere. And I said, "Why do you have a picture of a castle in your house?" And she's like, "Oh, that's one of the castles we have." And I'm like, "Wait, say that again?" "That's just one of the castles we own." And I said, "You own a castle? And that's just one of the castles you own?" So the more I get to know them, it turns out they have royal lineage from Irish ancestry, and the husband's name is Gary Solomon, and he's a count. And indeed, they own castles and homes, and et cetera, et cetera. So I get to know them more over the course of that film, and they're really great people, and I just become friends with them. So at one point, I just say, "God, I would love to just shoot in your castle." I'm just going to say it. I want to shoot a film in your castle. And they're like, "Okay, no problem. Let us know when." So I started. First thing I started with is I asked for pictures of the castle. They sent me about 1,000, and I'm not exaggerating, 1,000 pictures that they had taken. They had a whole database they had kept over the years, and they sent me 1,000 pictures of the castle. So I start writing the script based on just the pictures. I've never seen the castle in person. I think I'd been to France once that time, but definitely not that part of France. And started writing the script. And I like to call it the film gods. The film gods looked down upon us, and so many things that were lucky and perfect timing happened to make this film happen. It's as people know, it's really hard to make an independent film because you don't have the studio behind you, you don't have the financing behind you. It was self-financed between my partner, Dan Campbell, my producing partner in Blue Falcon, Dan Campbell, and myself, as well as some other people put in-kind deals, we call. So, like, for example, C21 Music Effects, they offered their music services, music editing, and composition. We got all the songs for practically nothing. Some of them were really good songs. Our friends at Mutiny Effects gave us a severely discounted rates for VFX and editing and post-production, et cetera. And it would take an hour just to name all of the people that helped us out. But the point is, I had a castle at my disposal, which is an amazing thing in and of itself. So I wrote the script. There's a song that plays heavily. It's in the trailer, and it plays throughout the movie. It's called Blood Red Roses by C21. When I was conceptualizing the script, I was on YouTube, and when I write, I like to listen to music, whether it be orchestral or Danny Elfman. I'm a huge Tim Burton fan, so Danny Elfman, of course, and blah, blah, blah. So I just type in epic songs, and I hear this Blood Red Roses song, which they had written for a video game, and it died a slow death at that point. So, but they owned the rights to it because it was an original piece. So I had Dan Campbell, my partner, reach out to him, and I said, "Hey, just ask him if it's available, what the deal is." Long story short, Rose theme, because it's called Blood Red Roses. Our character in our movie is called Lucy Bella Rose. Blood, red, and rose imagery throughout the film, and it all kind of together. Some Savannah, Georgia, and I started writing a script around it. That's how it began.
Damn.
Yeah.
I've definitely, for when writing, I've put on, like, created some Pandora station or something. It's all epic soundtrack music or something, usually without lyrics, but that is a pretty, kind of like soul pulling song.
Oh, and great.
And it's surprising because it is very well placed in this movie that I thought it might have been original to the movie, because it just seemed like the stuff was so well built around it. And I've had comics and stuff that I've done where I have, like, I listen to a band or a CD over and over again, and it kind of becomes like the the unofficial soundtrack for whatever it is that I'm doing.
Absolutely.
I also wanted to mention that I was really appreciative when I heard the Dead South playing, because I just recently found them and was getting into them, and I was like, oh my God, I love this song. I even told Matt in our chat. But yeah, that is a big thing, is that I don't know if people realize how much music can help build a setting in your head, even when you don't have a setting. But having that castle is amazing.
Oh God, it was so great. And about while we're on the Dead South, they're great too, because that song came out and it was blowing up all over the internet at that time. And again, I reached out to him. Dan reached out to him, and we said, hey, we got this independent film. We'd love to have it. And at that time, they were on tour in Europe, and they were like, I don't know, we're so busy and we're getting offers out the ass, because this song really was blowing up. It had like 1 million views overnight, etc. And but again, they eventually said, yeah, you know what? That'd be great. You guys put it in your film. And it really, to have something that highly produced on an independent film really makes it great, because otherwise it's your friend, on a guitar singing like a howling dog, and it just doesn't sound the same. But when you got highly produced songs that actually fit your genre and your story, it's amazing. So that's what happened. We got lucky on those. And then Aaron Alvey, by the way, the Royal Aaron Alvey, she also sings a song for the film, as well as a good friend of mine, 222. So the music, it can't be ever underestimated in a film, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. You said friends of yours, 222?
Yeah, 222. That's Jade Howard and Dennis Hamlin. They have a band. And they're also in the film industry. They do sound mixing for the industry.
There's such a weird connection between me and that number 222, and then it just keeps coming up more and more. There was a movie, I think, called 222 just recently, and a bunch of other stuff, but it's like everything about it is just like always had a bizarre effect in my life. Anytime I like look at the clock and it's 222 and it's just constantly.
Nice.
And then all these, I guess there's like this whole thing behind it. Like if you look it up and stuff, it's one of those bizarre numbers that just brings a lot of mysticism to it or something.
Nice. Well,
but now I'm gonna have to check out their band.
You got to check them out. They're great. 222 reversed is 555. In Thailand, the word for 5 is ha. So when Thais write on ha 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 on text, they write 555. Just so you know, it's an inverted 222.
Huh.
So there's that too.
That is awesome.
What? Yeah.
Mind blown.
I'm too tired for this shit.
Thailand's upside down on the world from where you're at. So 222 upside down would be ha ha ha, because we're on the other side of the world. So take that. Boom.
I gotta go to bed.
You just got math, buddy. You just got math and geography. And what is that?
I can't handle this right now.
That is assuming the Earth is not flat. Thanks for that.
Yeah. No,
Are we really going to get into a flat Earth conversation right now?
No, never mind.
What is the conversation? It's not. It really is.
It's not. There. Done.
Skip it. Done. Thanks, Elon Musk.
I saw flat Earthers like Elon Musk is full of shit. There's no way that happened.
I saw people complaining about the SpaceX launching a car into space. And they're like, guys, just wasting money. And everyone's like, actually, what he did was make it like far cheaper for us to advance technology.
Space travel and colonization.
Yeah, he made
and the human race.
Everything much easier. And that's all that man does. Like, I was just looking at the solar tiles. Because So I wanted them in our old house, but our old house was surrounded by trees. And now we moved out basically into a field. So it's like I can get solar tiles when we re-shingle the roof of the house. And I don't have to worry about electricity anymore, and it's like a fraction of the cost of if you just solar panels. So the shingles versus panels is a fraction of the cost once you have them all installed. And God, I would kiss that man if I could.
And they're long living roof, and you get one of those batteries and stuff. So it's not just that you're leasing energy back, but you can also hold on to it and retain it for when you need it in those days when you don't have sun.
Winter?
Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly. Well, I mean, I live in California, Matt. I don't know what you mean by that.
Yeah.
So
what about second winter?
yeah, if you're not familiar with the state of Wisconsin, basically from the middle of December until March, it looks like a wet sheet of paper outside.
God,
Yeah.
it's insane, man.
Yeah,
About the same smell.
Crazy.
I have to take vitamin D all winter. There's at least 3 dick jokes there, guys.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I know.
We're just back to the fluffing again.
Vitamin D all winter,
Yep.
nonstop. Yep.
Never get too much winter D.
Yep.
I don't even know what to talk to you about anymore because it's just going to go back to dick jokes.
So, where did you
of
find
course.
Sam Valentine for the role of Lucy in this?
Sam Valentine. So, I have this great friend named Valerie McCaffrey. She's one of the biggest casting agents in the industry. She used to be head of casting, I believe, at Universal. She did American History X. She cast the Pig movie Babe and a litany of movies. She probably has closer to 150 to 200 credits to her name. Anyway, she's a good friend of mine. I've known her for going on 10 or 15 years. And so I reached out to her because I needed cast, and she does it for a living professionally, and I didn't want to skimp on the cast because that's a quick way to sink your battleship. So she sent me about 4 up-and-coming actresses who would be willing to do an independent, film at a reduced rate in exchange for some payment and then some deferred and some points and et cetera, kind of deals we make on lower budget stuff. But not every actress wants to do that. But we auditioned about, I want to say 4 or 5 that she had already selected, so it already had gone through her process. And Sam really stuck out, and I was nervous about it at first because the woman who's also the singer, Erin Alvey, also auditioned, and her parents own the castle, so I didn't want to offend them and say, I'm not hiring your daughter, blah, blah, blah. But they were totally understand. They said, do what's best for the film. Whoever you feel is the role, don't worry about that, all that kind of stuff. So Sam nailed her audition, and she was willing to fly to France with complete strangers, which I thought was great. I mean, it was great that Valerie and I had a long-standing relationship, or else I don't think that would have happened. Because if I was a woman, I certainly wouldn't fly to another country with some creepy dude like this, and to spend 6 weeks in a castle, that just sounds like a way to end up dead or something, or dismembered. So, but she did it, and she killed it, and it was great because I just want to say too that it was a great growing process on her side and my side, because I've got over 20 years in the business, 25, depends on how, where you say I officially started, but I have a long time in the business. And I honestly say to you that everything I've done, all those movies, I learned something on every movie, has got me to the point where I can finally say that I can call myself a director. And a lot of people think, oh, you can pick up a camera and be a DP. You could just direct. Anybody can direct. And that is true, you can, but that doesn't mean you can do it. You can do it well. And I honestly think that all the time that I've spent in the industry, each thing has taught me something to get me where I am now, to make it better. So when people say, oh, I can direct that, it's so easy, anybody can be a director, I disagree with that, in that, yeah, it can make you a shitty director. And even me, I'm officially a first-time director, even though I've already directed stuff unofficially several times. But this is my directorial debut. And it was a learning experience. And each one is a learning experience. And my second film will be better than my first, and my third better than my second, et cetera. That's just, it's a craft like anything else. And the more you do it, the more you can. But to say to me that the 20 years I put in the business hasn't led up to the expertise, the experience, and everything I needed to get to this level would be incorrect. And so I say to film students and people who want to be Spielberg and Michael Bay and all these people, Quentin Tarantino, hey man, learn your craft, do a bunch of short films, work on a bunch of bigger films, learn from people that have been in the business longer than you, because it's not a waste, and you don't have to be an overnight success. You're learning to do something that if you really want to do it, you should treat it like anything else, like flying a 747. You got to start on the Cessna. So you got to start on the glider. You got to start in the simulator first, you know? That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, and I don't know that I've ever in my life thought that directing would be easy. To me, it seems incredibly hard and intimidating. But I do understand that you can spend your whole life doing something but not feeling like you've actually achieved what you consider to be the, like, I can call myself this now, until one particular thing. It's like working up to something. Every step is important. Everything is a learning experience, and all that is something that goes under your belt that you can take with you. But I do get that there's that one thing of like, okay, now I feel like I've done it. And it's not like I've done it and I'm done and I'm great, but it's just that now I feel like I've earned this title.
Absolutely 100%. And I felt that way for the longest time producing too, because I've produced a lot of movies, but I was so shy about calling myself a producer because there were people with so much experience level above me. And I was just like, I can't even, I'm not in the same realm of those people. I can't do that. And eventually, after years of producing, I said, okay, now I can call myself a producer, but I don't take that lightly. I don't take titles lightly. And the same with this film as director, writer, director. Even then I was like, yeah, but then I started getting some accolades and professionals in the industry. And I got into this big film festival, the Hollywood Real Independent Film Festival. It was nominated for their People's Choice Awards, which is only 5 films out of, let's say, 2,000 entries, 200 in the 200 that made it selected in the film. And then we're in the 5 for that. So that feels good. That, yeah, of course it has flaws. Of course we had budget issues. Of course it's not my magnum opus, but it's a huge accomplishment that I'm super proud of. Dan is super proud of it. Everyone involved in it is super proud of it. And I can now put my head up high and call myself a writer director, but that doesn't mean that I get cocky. That just means that, like you said, I am no longer a novice. I've accomplished this thing, and it was a hard accomplishment. I always equated it to like simultaneously doing a Rubik's Cube on set and writing like a score, because your mind is going in and all the tiny things that, location, the art department, the costume, is this right, blah, blah, blah. There's like a million things, the continuity, the camera angle. But the most important thing is the shot, the shot selection. Is this going to work? Because that's really what's going to play back to the audience. And that is like a constant thing. And then what I would do, we would shoot the footage. I would watch it all that night to make sure that we weren't missing anything. Then I would do the shot list, send it to the crew at 2 a.m. Then we'd wake up at 7 a.m. I'd sit with the DP. We'd start talking about the day again. And that went on. I think we shot it enough to have, I want to say we shot it in 24 days, which is a lot for an indie. I mean, I've shot indies in 12 days. To give you an example, Duel, the movie by Steven Spielberg, was shot in 12 days with 4 days pickups later. But still, that's to give you an example. So I was very lucky that everyone lived in the castle. I had the community there. The French community were giving me extras, and I got equipment from Europe from my good friends in London. And like I said, the film gods all kind of converged together. But believe me, that is a rare occurrence, and I was super lucky to have that, which is why I feel it was meant to be. Call it what you want, call it fate or cosmic, whatever. But I just feel that there was a lot of right time, right place that happened on that film, on the Incantation, and it continues to be that way.
Now with Sam, did she improv anything, or was everything in the script? Because she let loose with some really funny lines that like they just came out of her so naturally. Like the moment when she said "Vicar, please," it was the vicar. I laughed, and again I wrote to Matt. I'm like, she just said "Vicar, please," and I think I'm in love with her.
Yeah, exactly. No, she's great. I would say that line in particular, I wrote that, but I'll tell you, there's a scene that Sam rewrote, which was a great part of the process too. There's a scene where it's not really a plot spoiler, so we can discuss it. Where she's in the they go back to the witch's hut the day after she's seen the ethereal crone, and she finds the Sorteglia book, and she has this really heart to heart with JP, who's the French guy, the French love interest guy, and she says, I feel deja vu at this place. I feel at home. There's something crazy about it, even though I've never been here, blah, blah, blah. And then she says, I don't even fucking like pink and all that. So that scene was originally written a little different, but Sam, she couldn't sleep about it. And she was really worried that I was going to be insulted because I was also the writer. And she came to me kind of nervous, and she said, do you mind if I try to retool this scene? And I was like, of course not, Sam. You are the character, so you tell me what you think. So she comes back, and she had changed a bunch of the stuff there. And I was like, Sam, this is brilliant. Like, this is great, because I am a 46-year-old man. I'm not a 25-year-old woman. You are that character. So you should never feel guilty about giving your 2 cents about this. And this role is also going to be a real piece, etc. And she killed it. And that's one of my favorite scenes in the movie now. She really brings her heart into that scene. I told her to eventually put that on her reel too. She's put some of her stuff from the Incantation on the reel, but I think that one was great. And that's at least 50% Sam. That scene is really great. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I've written comics and stuff, and collaboration is a big part of what I love about storytelling. And Matt is a drummer in a pretty popular band. And I know the collaboration as songwriters and stuff is all very important.
We're fucking terrible. Don't listen to what Corey says.
Right. Popular to me.
Nice.
Thanks, buddy.
But still, I completely agree with you, is that you have to have that room. And while a certain amount of ego is important to be a creator, just to have enough faith in yourself to be able to make something or tell a story or play music, you don't want your ego to get so big that you don't let other people improve what you're doing. And you have to be both realistic and say, okay, yes, that might work, but we have to kind of fix some of your ideas with it. Or, even sometimes be able to say no. But honestly, when someone's bringing you something that they really believe in, taking that first step of saying, yeah, let me think about that. Let me kind of go over it in my head and see where you're coming from, and maybe we can make this better.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, I'm a firm believer in, especially on a feature film, to be a singular vision as what the overall scope is, but definitely it's all about collaboration. Every little thing, down to the music, down to the score, down to each song, down to the color correction. I mean, every little thing, people give you advice. That doesn't mean you have to take it, but you'd be stupid not to listen to it. You'd be an idiot to say this person feels passionate about it. They're professional. First is more than two, so you definitely have to hear it out. That doesn't mean you have to use everything they say. It doesn't have to be vote by committee, but definitely collaboration is key to our industry. Absolutely.
Yeah, because you've done so many different things in film, it makes sense that you would have a respect for, everybody who's involved. Everybody brings something to it. And so everybody's value is that much more amplified because you understand where they're coming from.
100%. Absolutely.
And I think it makes you a better director by allowing the characters and the people that you work with to put forth input, instead of just being like, nope, this is the way I wrote it, this is the way we're going to do it, and this is the way it's going to be.
Yeah. And you'll hear some of the best directors and some of the craziest stories, even on the biggest films like Star Wars and etc., are moments that happen on set. They're the Indians. I did a lot of Indian films, for example. They take it to the other extreme where they don't even have a script a lot of times, and it's all improv on the day. They have a rough outline. So that's the other extreme, but actually considered somewhat of a roadmap. But the magic that happens between all the collaboration on set is definitely a great thing that you should not ignore ever. And some of the best moments happen there.
Yeah.
So do you?
No, she was very impressive.
Yes, I'll agree with that.
Yeah, she's great.
Did you intend for people to hate her? Because at first I couldn't stand her. But
that that was the total bait and switch thing. Several things in the movie. You know, like in the beginning, I wanted it to feel more contemporary because she comes to Paris and she's in a car and blah, blah. And I slowly want her to dissolve away into this gothic fairy tale world where she is definitely a fish out of water until eventually you see, you know, the plot tells you otherwise. but yeah, it's I definitely did that on purpose. I wanted it extreme.
Do you have a release date for this?
I think right now we're talking either July 31st or August 31st. It's up for a distributor. Okay. To our distributor, we're finishing our deal now, or we should be signed any day now. Actually, we've already went back and forth with the distribution, so it's just a matter of them finally agreeing to the last round of notes, and then we're going to sign. They've told us late July or late August.
Nice.
Yeah. In the meantime, we'll be doing the festival circuit if we get any more of those. And while we're talking about it, so if anybody is in Los Angeles listening to this, there's still tickets available for the world premiere, which is at the Hollywood Real Independent Film Festival. They can look that up online. The Incantation is playing on February 28th at 10 p.m., which is a Wednesday. So there's still tickets available. I can't speak for Dean Cain, as he's a busy dude, but he has expressed some interest in either going to the screening or to the red carpet event.
Nice.
But he's a busy guy, so that may not happen, but he has expressed interest. So hopefully we'll see Dean there. And then my producing partner, Dan Campbell, is going to be there. Some of the cast and crew will also be there. So if you go to that screening, you might have a chance to meet some of them. The festival is up in the air whether they'll do Q&A afterwards, because it's all dependent on whatever's happening at the time. So they don't really commit to that, but they say it's a possibility.
That's great. And what is now you've got other stuff that's coming up that you're producing, and acting in. Saving Zoe is the one that I see looks like it's in post-production.
Yeah.
But do you have another idea as to what your next writing directing is going to be, or does it depend on a friend who has another castle?
It might. Well, there's actually I've written 7 scripts that are pretty fully fleshed out, that are all ready to go. So those are kind of in circulation, but when I'm not directing, I'm producing. So I don't have a lot of time to self-promote. I've finally got an agent recently, but the result of that is I'm too busy working to do the director thing, which is unfortunate, which is why I made this shift in my career, because I'm like, I got to start looking out for number one finally, because I've spent decades making other people's dreams come to life. So I'm finally doing my own. So I have 7 different ones of different genres that are always getting pitched around. Depending on the success of the Incantation, we actually talked about. It's funny that you mentioned that, because I actually have a friend who owns the American version of a castle, a giant mansion in Pennsylvania. And he said, why don't we do Incantation 2 and do Lucy's story when she gets back to the States? And I said, well, that's not a bad idea. Let's see what the success of the film is. Maybe we could get that going too. So that's among others. I got a mafia script, and I got a faith-based script, which is crazy. Oh, let me tell you a little bit about that. So the reason why the Incantation has all this crazy occult stuff is my backstory is I was in the Catholic seminary since I was basically a child, 13 through, freshman in high school through sophomore in college. I was in the Catholic seminary. Little did they know they were grooming me to make crazy Satan worship, devil horror movies. But my background and all of that, since then I'm a heathenistic, beer drinking, Thailand living pagan. But my background and all that, gave me I sort of did the flip version of that for the Incantation, which you'll see there's a lot of what's called a black mass, which is essentially like a holy mass. And in the movie, you'll see there's the Holy Trinity, but they're reversed, being the three characters, the Father, Son, Holy Ghost would be the Holy Trinity, and we're the reverse version of the satanic version of that. But those themes are prevalent throughout the film because of my background in Catholicism and stuff. So I just basically took them and flipped them and did some research on occultism and Satan worship and witchcraft and all that kind of thing, which oddly enough, there was a lot of witchcraft in that part of France at one time. So it's sort of, and I found that out later through research, which was great while I was writing the script. It kind of all plays together. Again, it all fits nicely, but it wasn't originally intended that way. It just kind of sort of built in, on itself, and it worked out great to make the story even more believable, because you can go online and research stuff like that. I put a little nuggets in the writing that, talk about Saint Walpurga or Black Mass or Lucy, the main character, being named after Saint Lucille, or the I talk about Countess Bathory in the script. I talk about just all these little tidbits to get people that they could check them out online and research them.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that as a kid, I had these encyclopedia sets from Funk and Wagnalls and the dictionaries, and I used to just read through those things all the time.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of the stuff that I loved to read about was Greek mythology, and so much of Greek mythology is represented in comic books. They were always stealing from that stuff, and so that's kind of stuff that permeates my brain so much when it comes to storytelling, that even without intending to, I draw from it. But the same thing when I almost went to seminary, I was kind of courted to do that, and then the priest I was working with, they kind of talked me out of it because they felt like it wasn't the right path for me, but they were really cool, and they were just so supportive about everything that I was considering, and they just seemed like maybe this isn't. It's not that you don't have good intentions, but you're not quite what. It doesn't seem like your path. Which is great, because my life definitely went in a different direction from that too. But I love that I have that knowledge again to draw from. If it comes to my own writing and stuff, sure, but also to be able to understand when watching someone else's story, to pick up the things that they've drawn from too, and that they're utilizing it. And I got a lot of that when we got to the culmination of the story in the Incantation. And I'm also glad that you're mentioning the fact that you're considering a sequel to it, because that is something at the end where I was like, okay, there's an opening here that we can go on to. Yeah. And I was going to ask, but I didn't want to presume too much.
Yeah. And absolutely. And, just on that note, other than his child molesting ways, Roman Polanski is a big influence on me, I'd say, and there's two films that he did. One was Rosemary's Baby, of course. The Apartment was great. Knife in the Water. But Rosemary's Baby, and also the one, I can't remember the name, is something like Fearless Vampires of the Such and Such, whatever. Also, that one, you'll see bits and pieces of that in the Incantation as well. So yeah, I'd love to do a sequel. If this one hits, then definitely that's a possibility. It'd be great. I'd love to play on it a little more.
Yeah, and it's tough when your heroes turn out to be awful, because it's like you still have this appreciation for the artwork, and like, well, these movies affected me, and I love them.
Yeah.
But guy's a dick. But yeah, I totally feel you on that.
I know. And in a double whammy, I worked with Kevin Spacey on United States of Leland.
Oh yeah, that one hurt.
He was the nicest fucking guy. I mean, I used to talk to him like I talk about Dean Cain and Matthew McConaughey. He was so sweet, and now I can't say that anymore. I'll be like, well, I don't know the other guy. I know the nice guy. Like fuck.
Right. Yeah. There's the more public persona, and then there's the dark underneath it, which it's people have their demons, and they do. It's sad, and I don't condone, but I we're all kind of imperfect, and it's just some people really kind of let themselves be too imperfect.
Yeah, absolutely. So another thing I wanted to touch on real quick about the Incantation was I thought it was really important to have a strong female character. I've always been a fan, despite this was way before the Me Too movement and the resurge and feminism and all that stuff. I've always felt that way, and Sam embodied that great. But I didn't want to do it like, I don't necessarily want like Wonder Woman. I don't want this infallible, perfect woman. I want a flawed woman that people can relate to. And Sam's character. Sam's character is that flawed, very strong female character, and I love that. I've written and she pulled it off great because it's hard for an actress. Of course, they're taught to the ego is the most important thing to them. They got to look perfect. They got to act perfect. They got to do all these things perfectly. So they have to learn how to humble themselves. And because it's not about them, it's about the character. The character is flawed. The actress is not flawed. So I remember at one point was perfect. And she was saying things, it was clear that she spent hours with the coach, saying things perfectly. And I was like, Sam, you just got to let it go. Like, we're not making a commercial here. This is just like, Lucy's just your everyday girl next door. Just like, it's okay if she stumbles on the words a little bit. And she had a hard time with that because she's perfect. She's a perfect woman, but that was part of it. It was great.
But that's the thing too, is when you're talking about a strong female character, it's not strong female character like they're the strongest person in the room, that they are the ideal or whatever. They're not Wonder Woman, although Wonder Woman is a fantastic character. It's a strong female character is strong because they feel realistic, because you're giving them a fully realized personality and story, and then they do things not just to support the male character, but they have their own agency, they have their own sense of being, and so the empathy is if you feel for them for their flaws and for their failings is just as important as their successes and the things that they're good at. And I think that's a misconception that a lot of people have, is when they hear a strong female character, they're thinking of a Buffy the Vampire Slayer or things like that, which is great. I mean, I love those characters and I love those shows and movies.
Yeah, they have their place, but...
Right. Well, we're not saying woman has her place, but we're just... yeah. But I totally understand what you mean, is that she's fully realized, and her way of bringing across that character is fully realized, and that I completely agree with you, and that's what I like to see that in stories as well.
Yeah, it's awesome, and it's good to, and again, back to your original question of, was she meant to be sort of this snotty, bitchy? And yes, she was, because that's her character arc. Like you see her superficially in the beginning of like, God, this chick, she calls the French people rude. She's just an asshole to everyone. She doesn't want to really be there. And then at the end, you're like, whoa, you feel for her. You start to get in depth with the character.
I was really nervous when it started that it was going to end up being a real bad time. So I'm really happy that you know what you're doing. But when she started talking, I was just like, oh boy, this is going to be a very long movie.
But then all the selfie stuff and everything pays off in that room. Yeah. When she's saying that this is a persona that she's had to kind of invent because she feels like this is what people want from her, and it's not who she actually is. And I feel like that's a very big statement about, especially people who have an online following that are trying to make it big as a model or as a personality on Snapchat or on Instagram and all these things, where it's like you get followers and you want to please the followers, you can get more followers, but do you lose a part of yourself at the same time because you have to present to them what you think they want as opposed to who you actually are? And Matt and I think have talked about this before, where we're very realistic with who we are on this show, but there is certainly a different me that shows up at work on Mondays because I can't quite be this loud and boisterous. I'm close. I don't feel like people are going to not recognize me from one to the other, but there's levels, and it's that kind of shifting level that makes it like, so I can deal with people at a different situation. Without making them always question, like, is Corey really fucked up? Like, are we Are we gonna find bodies in his freezer?
Possibly.
You're gonna have to dig past a lot of egos, but maybe.
Nice.
The rotting flesh really helps flavor the frozen waffles.
That's true.
It's just like
I mean, a
smoking
sprinkling
meat.
of grandma. It all comes back around.
Corey has a nice recipe for maple grandma syrup.
Mm.
A little grainy, but it still gets the point.
How do you think
Granny.
How do you think Mrs. Dash got started?
Oh my God, I can't handle. You're ruining my day. Too many.
Aunt Jemima and Mrs. Butterworth's. It's painting your own breakfast menu.
Well, the 555 and the Mrs. Dash and.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Hey, I took a swig of my beer. I got a little anecdote regarding the film. Remember, the film gods is what I like to say all the time. So we were looking for a bar in France, right? So we got to France, and some of the local fixtures kind of read the script, and they were like, "You'll never fucking make this movie. It's impossible. You can't find." Because I had the DS2s, which are the classic cars in there. I needed an Irish bar, and they kept saying, "Why do you have an Irish bar in France?" And I was like, "Irish bar is universal. Irish pub, they're around the world. You could go anywhere in the world, in Bangkok, and find an Irish pub. There's got to be one." They're like, "You'll never fucking find one." So all of those things, I eventually found all of those things, but particularly when I was scouting for the Irish pub, I went to this little town, and there was one Irish pub, in like a 100-mile radius. So I walk in, and at first I'm just sussing it out because I don't want to come out with, "Hey, can I film here right away?" Because they'll be like, "Well, get the fuck out," right? So we're sitting there, Dan and I, we're just chatting them up in broken English, and there's this smoking hot cocktail waitress, bartender there, and she says, "You got?" And we said, "Fuck yeah, we want a beer. Of course we want a beer." And she says, "What do you want?" And we're like, "We're not from France. We don't know even what you would have. Just give us something local." So, shit you not, she pours us a Belarus beer. Now, my character in the story is Lucy fucking Belarus. And we just look at each other like, what the fuck just happened, right? So she poured this Belarus beer, and just like in the character in the movie, we pick it up and we're like, this can't be fucking real, because that beautiful rose, the whole rose theme that we talked about earlier, it was a real fucking beer. The one Irish fucking pub, and it's not a popular beer, so it's not like it's in every bar. It was in this fucking bar, right? So we drink it, rose beer. We say, "Hey, would you guys do some product placement?" They said, "Fuck yeah!" So they sent us free beer. They sent us posters for the movie. They ended up in the movie. There you go, boom. Talk about planets aligning. That little anecdote really fucking happened, and it was unbelievable.
And you just turned Matt into a filmmaker because all he wants is to be sponsored by a beer company.
Yeah. I have about 90.
Unfortunately, the sponsors that he has for his drinking is completely opposite of that.
I have to call him when I'm thirsty. It's just a fucking mess. So they get a phone call every day, and I never listen to them.
Nice.
So I assumed that the Belarus beer that appears in the movie was made for the movie. I did not
Call
know
up
that.
Loud Beer.
Did not know that was a real thing.
Call up Loud Beer. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
I'm gonna have to give Beer Loud a call. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
I drink on the internet once a week. You should probably just give me free beer.
Yeah. What's the problem with that? It sounds great.
Fucked up. We've had a guy who owns a brewery on this podcast. Maybe I should just tell him to send me beer. Well, they haven't officially opened. It's actually in Austin that they're opening, I believe, next month.
Right.
So,
which is where we got Circle Kane and Beat Down.
Mm-hmm. Wait, the company I work for has an office there too, so I'm trying to get down there so I can visit the brewery. Maybe the shoot locations for Beatdown.
Maybe.
I'm
is that guy Harry Knowles from Ain't It Cool News? Is he still alive? Is he still around? Is he still relevant?
Who?
I think he's another one who's had some problems with the the Me Too movement and things that he's done. I've read a couple stories. I don't have a lot of knowledge of it, but it sounds like there was some issues with.
I didn't expect this guy to look like a big walking Q-tip.
He was the shit for a while at one point.
Yeah, he absolutely was.
If this guy was the shit, then there's hope for all of us.
That's right.
Yeah.
He probably had a beer sponsorship. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, but at what cost? Because he looks like a douchebag.
Yeah, apparently he is. If what these allegations are true.
See? Oh yeah,
Called it.
I'll be damned. Sexual harassment. Well, he doesn't look like the type that could actually like get a girl on his own, so he has to sexually harass them.
Right. Yeah, totally.
I'm not going to base it off of his looks, man. I'm not pretty. But
just... Neither am I, but I literally judge everything. It's pretty bad. Yeah. But once again, we're off topic.
Nice.
It's a curse.
It's a curse.
Yeah. So what do you have? Did we talk about what you're doing next? I'm like half drunk and really fucking tired. So
that's perfect.
I'm.
You'll sleep good.
I hope so. My wife flies out at 6 a.m., which means I will be awake at 4. Yeah, she's got to travel for work, so she's going out to Oklahoma. So I'll be awake.
Nice.
It's gonna be a short night.
Yeah. Well, that's what she said.
I'll sleep when I'm dead. Hey-o. To your, that's what she said, not my. That was a mess. Corey sent me the rate beer page for Bella Rose beer. I'm just looking at that.
Yeah,
I love.
That's crazy.
I love Belgian ales, so I need to try and get my hands on some of these.
Jesus Christ, I'm an enabler. God damn it!
Oh fuck! Because if you didn't, I wouldn't just. Corey, calm down.
I
have days of the week that I go to certain liquor stores because I know when their shipments come in. It's you gotta get the new.
I go crazy for the pumpkin beers if I'm in the States
Me
during that
too.
time. Man, I'll try any of them and all of them.
I have in my basement. I have a 2016 and a 2017 Kentucky bourbon barrel aged pumpkin beer, and I think they're both like 18 or 19% or something insane.
Sounds awesome.
There's another one my buddy in Kansas sent me. Perky bourbon
Dude,
pumpkin.
Speaking of things I could potentially doing next, and beers and product placement to tie it all together.
Just let me know where to meet you.
I wrote this script called The Unhallowed Horseman, which is probably the script that I love the most, and I was offered some big money to sell it, and I didn't, just because I wanted to retain the rights and blah blah blah. But it's essentially another Sleepy Hollow story, but a contemporary version. That's way different than anything I think that's ever been told of that. And I had two product placement deals for that, which were the Headless Horseman beer. They were Michigan beer companies. Mm-hmm. One went out of business. One's still in business. One's the huge one. I can't remember the name, but they both have either Headless Horseman beers or Ichabod Crane beer. I think it's called Ichabod. Founders. Anyways, so
seems like it wouldn't have a very good head.
Corey, that was a really bad dad joke, and it's New Holland Brewing has Ichabod.
New Holland, yeah, that's them. Yep. So I wrote the script, which I really love. I really want to make that movie. That would be the next thing I would do if I had a choice. If some producer came to me and said, "Hey, we'd love the Incantation. What's your next horror script?" I'd say, "Let's make the Unhallowed Horseman." But it's crazy because I love Washington. I love classic literature. Part of my education in the seminary. I love Washington Irving. I've always had a soft spot in my heart for that story, the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. So I went up to, I wrote the script, and then I went to Sleepy Hollow, New York, which is a real town. It used to be called Tarrytown, and then they renamed it in honor of, he's buried there, his house, Wilford Truce is there. And everything was exactly how I had written it in the script, which was uncanny because I had never been to that place before. So I ended up going to Sleepy Hollow Cemetery which is where Washington Irving is buried. And I bought a plot there because I thought, fuck, I want to end up next to Washington Irving, relatively, where he got the inspiration to write The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. So if that fucking sleepy headless horseman dude is real, he's right here. It's right there. He can come and haunt me and piss on my grave for all I care. I think that'd be awesome. So I bought a plot there as a side note.
That's
I
awesome.
thought it was awesome.
That's awesome. You're super duper interesting. I really want you to come back on at a later date. We should time this out a little better so that I can get like real uncomfortably drunk.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, so we'll definitely figure it out. But we should probably wrap this up so I don't fall asleep sitting here.
Sounds great.
I feel like a dick. I didn't sleep well last night. It is what it is. I'm an old man. I know I'm the youngest one here, and I just feel like the oldest one here.
Nice.
But you can contact the show by leaving us a voicemail at 805-328-3966. You can email us at pod@gncast.com. You can leave a message on the website. Corey, you were going to say something, and I cut you off. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I just said it was all that clean living. That
No.
You feel like
I got very, very drunk last night. You can follow the show on Twitter,
He's a
Facebook.
drummer in a rock band.
But yeah. We had friends over, so I can get super, super drunk because all I have to do is walk from my basement to my bedroom. When I leave my house, I try and like I have a buddy who falls asleep in bars, and it's like I never ever want to do that. So usually, if I go out, I don't drink a ton because I know I got to get myself home. And now living like in the middle of nowhere, driving on back roads is with a few too many is not something I'm interested in doing.
Right.
Yeah, but I forgot where the fuck I was. We're on iTunes.
You're on Facebook.
Yes, thank you. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Podcast of Terror. Subscribe to this podcast via iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, any of your favorite podcatchers. Leave us feedback, please. I'll read it on the next show if you put it on there. People keep leaving like star ratings, but no actual like feedback. Like I'd like to read it because we love you guys. All subscription options and links can be found at gncast.com/subscribe, and then you can follow the entire Galactic Network on the Facebook under the Galactic Network. Jude, where can people find everything that you'd like to push?
Well, the Incantation is on Facebook. Blue Falcon Productions is on Facebook. I got 26,000 fans on Instagram, which ain't shabby. I'm also on Twitter at Jude S. Walko. So just type in my name on Google. You'll see me. Check out my IMDb. Look at the movies I've done, and you'll all be all good.
Easy enough. Corey, who are you pushing this week?
I'm going to actually push the podcast of the lead actress of the Incantation. Sam Valentine has a podcast I found out called One Broke Actress, and it looks like it's relatively new, but she's got some interesting guests and stuff on there. So I haven't had a chance to check it out yet, but I'm going to give it a try. I added it to my listening list, and if anybody wants to know more about Sam before we get the chance to see the movie that she starred in, give that a listen.
That'd be great.
I'm going to get really drunk some night and send her a message and be like, hey, you should come on my show.
And you were exactly the kind of person that she would not leave the country to go film a movie with.
Exactly. So let's all be happy that I wasn't on this movie. Otherwise, this would never have happened the way it happened. You're such a dick, Corey. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Untapped at Matt the Lifeguard. Corey and I did not decide what we were talking about next week.
Yeah, I want to go maybe a little bit lighter, or at least something that's actually available for people to see. That's the problem, is a lot of the stuff we've been watching,
which is awesome,
which is great. Yeah, absolutely. But if maybe we went in a slightly different direction,
damn it, there's a movie I've really been wanting to rewatch, but which is House of a Thousand Corpses.
Oh, you know what? Let's do it.
Okay,
that's a light, happy comedy with a love story.
I fucking love that movie. That and The Devil's Rejects, and I've just been meaning to rewatch it, but it's not one that you can just sit down and be like, I'm gonna watch this and eat some cake.
I'm gonna put it on my phone and watch it in church.
It sounds like a bad idea, but don't let me tell you how to live your life.
Or a great idea.
I guess it depends on what kind of church you've gone to. Those Presbyterians might be cool with it.
All right, so House of a Thousand Corpses. It will actually be my first time viewing the movie.
No way.
In its entirety. I've seen scenes of it, and it always kind of weirded me out a little bit too much.
Dwight Schrute is in it?
Devil's Rejects.
Devil's Rejects is more intense.
Okay.
Especially
That's surprising.
Especially when he jams the pistol in the chick's vagina.
Yeah.
Nice. Which I just call regular Thursday night.
That's all right. Apologize to your wife for me, please, because this does not sound like something that's enjoyable, but to each their own.
And then when it came out, it was covered with dust.
Oh, that's what happens when you finger grandma with a pistol.
Yep.
Oh, man. Well, yeah. This is not going to end up anywhere good if we keep talking. Jude, thank you very much again. Like I said, we'll have you back a little bit down the road, especially if we know when like the Incantation's coming out and stuff, or you know what you're doing next, then we can push that. Perfect. Even if you have nothing to push, we'll just have you back.
Yeah, if you want to come on and choose a movie for us to do a review together, which is what the show used to be about.
Yeah,
we would love it.
Yeah, the weird. I hate to use the term unfortunate, but the reality of recently we've gotten a bunch of really cool interviews, so we haven't been destroying movies like we have. Like normally we just spoil the shit out of them and talk and.
Nice.
So that's what we're going to get back to next week. So if you have a horror movie that you really want to watch, like maybe The Car, which I looked up while we were talking about it before.
Yes, let's do it.
Okay.
I fucking love The Car. Let's
do
it.
So we'll plan on that. Well, it's February, so sometime in spring we'll figure it out. If you're not too busy,
perfect.
We'll do The Car. Bring like a 6, maybe a 12-pack of beer. I'll bring a couple wine sized bottles of beer. My shirt might come off. I don't know.
Nice.
It'll be the official drink and drive episode of the podcast of Terror.
I like it.
I know you do. That's why you need help.
I didn't say I like drinking and driving. I just like the term the drink and drive episode. Awesome. Well,
Perfect.
Jude, for like the 8th time, thank you. It was a pleasure. We'll keep in touch. We'll do this again. So
awesome.
Thank you very much for listening to another episode of the Podcast of Terror. We will talk to you guys next week.
Stay scary, everybody.